I got some stuff called some THCP the other day. THCA is illegal in Georgia now, I think, so they're kind of phasing it out slowly.
Okay.
It's probably that you can still smoke it. You can't like sell it though or something, because they still sell it, or they're like phasing out of it. Maybe there's a grandfather thing. In any case, THCP is in, and I was testing that out, and he was like, just take like 2 puffs a day. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? he's like, no, it's 30 times more psychoactive than the THCA was. And I'm like, bullshit. But it's stronger. He's like, yeah. And it only comes in 0.5 gram fucking carts. And I was like, God, that's bullshit. All right, give me like a handful of those. And I got home and I was hitting this thing like I normally hit stuff. This isn't it, by the way. This is some Delta 8 shit. This is pretty mild. But I was hitting that THCP. And it like hit me all at once. like I wasn't slowly getting higher and higher. I was just suddenly scary edible high. Like I felt like I had taken too many edibles, and I'm laying there on the couch with a thunderstorm music playing so that I don't freak out. And my girlfriend looks over at me and she's like, my girlfriend looks over at me on the couch. She's like, hey, I'm heading out. See you later. I'm like, you're leaving me?
Don't leave me.
She's like, is anything wrong? I'm like, no. It was
me? No. Am I talking loud?
that was exactly it. I wanted her to stay at home so bad. I needed help.
They might ban all THC products in Texas.
Oh, damn, Texas. They need to move to the land of the free up here in Missouri.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is pushing for a full ban on the psychoactive drugs found in cannabis and other products. Senate Bill 3 would eliminate the ability to purchase THC products regardless of their THC content.
Boo hiss on that.
Do we have any vibe on whether it'll pass?
I mean, it's Texas. They're pretty, I mean, the legislature there is pretty conservative. So I don't know.
I mean, like legal weed passed here. And so I feel like it's just a matter of time elsewhere. And something I wanted to touch on or ask Hutch, like you said, when you would smoke weed, like it would make you want to drink after being high.
I had to, because it was like maintenance. It would get rid of the anxiety. So
interesting.
That was like, I was like self-medicating on top of self-medicating. So I would get to a pleasant state, but it was usually when it was like late at night, like I'm in my room and, you know, I smoked some little, like even Delta 8 would get me to the bad place sometimes. And if I just drank a bunch of whiskey, it would mellow me out. But obviously you can't do that every day.
Nothing like shuts down my, like, I remember like in college, like all through my life, like if it was a thing where it's like, all right, we're all going to go out and drink here. Like I knew I couldn't smoke weed before I went because weed would destroy any desire to drink. Like it would put you in a frame, or at least put me in a frame of mind where it's like, I'm already stoned and now I have to guzzle 10 Miller Lights or whatever to get a buzz. Like, oh man, this is, you know, I'm going to be out all day. I'm going to drink this much. How many calories is that? Like for me, like, alcohol and weed are like or at least they're opposites. If I do weed first, if I start drinking, like there's no problem adding weed in later. But like if I'm high, I want like Diet Pepsi and sodas, and I want to overeat and like be a glutton way more than I'm driven to go to alcohol.
Yeah, it affects everybody differently. I'm jealous of the people that can, like, if they're stressed, if they smoke weed, it brings them down. Because for me, it was the opposite. Like if I was stressed about anything and I smoked weed, it would just amplify my stress. I would just think about it, racing thoughts, and I just couldn't calm down.
Yeah, it does hit everyone differently, because everyone has those friends. And I remember my buddies in high school and college being like this, where every time they'd smoke weed like 4 times a year. Which is like an amount of time for them to forget how horrible their most recent experience was, where like they'd be around. Pale. Exactly. Like we'd all be in a group and we'd all be smoking weed because it doesn't bother us that way. And they'd be like, oh, you know what? This is the time I'm going to enjoy it. And they'd take a couple hits. And before you know it, you look over, ghost white. They look absolutely panicked. And it's like, they're even openly saying like, why'd I do this to myself again?
Yeah.
I knew
some people, there's just something about weed that just brings out like a really bad place. It can actually like trigger So like for schizophrenia, it can trigger latent schizophrenia. So some people have schizophrenia, but it never manifests, or they have the genetic makeup for schizophrenia and it never manifests. And then they take like one bad edible and they have a full on psychotic break. And so you do have to be careful with that. I mean, like I support cannabis products. I think like, people benefit from it a lot, but it can be, you have to just like, if it doesn't feel good, you probably shouldn't try to force the issue. And it's doubtful that finding some other strain is going to make it better.
Like if you have a family history of schizophrenia, you're 100% right. Like it's a dice roll to get really into weed, because it can just fuck you up if that's latent in there, and that's not something you want to tango with. That's
Hutch,
scary.
have you tried DMT?
No.
Me neither. I was hoping.
We got to get some DMT. Woody, I know where we can get some, or we know somebody who can get some. That's what I should say.
Oh, yes. I haven't seen that guy in months.
Are you joking?
No, he was on the Hangout the last time. You know who we're talking about, right?
Well, it doesn't matter who we're talking about, but there's a guy we all know who at any time could get some DMT.
You're telling me I looked at this person this weekend for 4 hours and didn't know who he was?
Well, like I could use. I don't. You're asking me questions that are going to narrow down who it is, and I don't want to answer those questions. But anyway, I also want to do DMT. Is the point? I've wanted to do it since I did LSD. I wanted to do LSD first. It's been a couple years now, but it seemed like that was the baby step to DMT, which seems like
Isn't DMT like a 5-minute trip?
Yeah, but it's like way more intense apparently.
So the thing about DMT, from what I understand, I've seen people do it on like camera, like live with me, and I've seen videos of people doing it and such. And there's 2 different kinds of DMT, and I think they add a letter to one kind. I think maybe one kind comes from the toad venom, and one kind comes from like maybe like you create it in your kitchen or whatever in a lab. I could be wrong about that, but I remember seeing the guy smoke the toad venom version. And that's the guy who, remember, Taylor, he's rolling around in that creek, just saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. And they have to control him so he doesn't hurt himself.
Then he like throws up. Yeah, that looked horrible.
Looks horrible. That was smoke. That was vaping toad venom. I don't want
his knees were bleeding. Nobody was like keeping an eye on him.
Yeah, he was he nearly drowned in that puddle. But we watched a guy in our, there's a YouTube video. I'll link it to you later. It's pretty sick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. But we watched a guy in our Patreon hangout, link down below. Come hang out with us. Do a vape that had DMT, and I tried to do like a guided experience, and it seemed to work. He said that he could see and experience what I was telling him to see and experience. Like I was acting like a dungeon master, basically. I was like, there's a waterfall, and you're looking up at it, and it's flowing over you, and the water's warm and golden. It's glowing golden, and he's like, wow. and he's very much, he looks like he's halfway in a coma. Like he looks silly. And at the end of his trip, he spit up like a kid. You know how like a kid will be like, and like spit up on themselves? He did that on himself. He basically vomited a little bit, like uncontrollably down his chin and onto his shirt. And then he kind of snapped out of it. And it was like, that was a wild trip. And I was like, holy fuck. Like, how long did it feel like you were gone? And he said it felt like he was gone for like 10, 15 minutes. He'd been gone for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe, you know? So that's attractive to me.
It didn't help that Dirty was like, nightmare, nightmare, nightmare.
He said, you're on fire. You're on fire. You're burning alive. And I'm like,
Dirty.
No, it was mean spirited. We didn't like that.
That was shitty.
I think he was inexperienced. Maybe today's Dirty would be better.
I don't think he knew the full extent of what we were doing.
No, he showed up late. He didn't get.
Although I got my revenge because I did LSD with Dirty in person in Colorado like a few months after that, and we gave him quite a hard time during his trip. Dude, we rented this place, and it was my first week being able to legally, like, off probation, basically. I've been on federal probation for years, and finally I was able to go smoke weed and like hang out with my friends. And we rented this place in Colorado, and we had like a theater room, and we all did LSD. I did like 4 hits of acid, and we played Fantasia. And Dirty's like smaller than us physically, like maybe 150 pounds or something at the time. And I guess it hit him extra hard, and he was afraid.
You did 4 tabs for your first trip?
Yeah, well, like at first I took 1 to make sure I wasn't going to like hate the drug and the experience. And I immediately loved it so much. And there's 0 nausea, which surprised me because shrooms have this nausea that I hate about them. And I know that ayahuasca and lots of other things like that come with that nausea.
I had nausea and diarrhea every time I did LSD.
Felt great. And so like I kept ramping it up over the course of maybe an hour and a half. I was like, one tab, wait 45 minutes. And I was like, I feel like I've stabilized, like I'm no longer on the way up, but everything looks a little squiggly. Everything looks a little vibraty, but I'm not seeing any pink elephants. Give me 2, give me 3, give me 4. And when I got to 4, then I could see things. I couldn't see things that weren't there, but the things that were there that I was looking at did not look themselves. They were moving.
Your whole sensory experience changes. So I remember when I took it, there was a fan in the room that was playing and or that was running. And normally you hear a fan, it just sounds like a fan. When you're on LSD, it feels like you can hear the individual vibrations of the fan. It takes on a whole new kind of thing. And then when you look at things, like you look at a wall, you see a white wall, it's whatever. When you're on LSD and you look at a wall, it looks like the fucking Beatles song. It looks like a million diamonds. Like it looks like you're looking at like individual particles of things, and everything's waving and contracting. And
were the visuals why you enjoyed it so much?
It was a visual, but honestly, like things feel good. Like sex feels fucking amazing.
That's what I want to do next time so much. Yes. Yes, I feel like that would be awesome.
What else is good on LSD is because I've heard people say that eating. Food. Yeah, I've heard Kyle said he ate on LSD, but you and everyone else I've spoken to says that eating is disgusting because you feel you feel like every morsel and every tooth crunch or something.
Let me tell you, last thing I wanted to do when I did like some people eat like oranges, like something like nice and light or whatever.
Fuck
but
that. No,
I just gack myself out on LSD and like lose weight.
Maple bacon donuts we ordered from this really good donut place in Denver, and me and my boy ate these maple bacon donuts, and they were scrumptious. I remember being so I don't know, like it was like I could taste every molecule on the acid, so it tasted better to me, and it was just creamy and crunchy and delicious and just everything I wanted in that moment. And I also, the setting thing, and people talk about, oh, you're gonna have a panic attack, it's gonna be a scary trip. I'll be honest. I was like, if you're gonna do it. Bring it. Are you gonna be bad? Oh, we're looking at something scary. Fuck me up. Bring it. There was a clown painting on the wall. I stared at it. I stared at that clown.
I hate that sober.
They had a rec room with like silly clowns on the wall and like foosball and a bunch of other shit. And you had to walk through the rec room to get to the backyard. We hung out in the backyard a lot. So between like den and backyard back and forth and that this creepy clown, and I just stared at him. I was like, freak me out, fucker, bring it, bring it,
brother.
He's all wiggly and shit. He's all wiggly and winking at me and shit. And I'm like, that ain't scary. That's funny.
I
feel like it would be healthy to allow Hutch to tell you the fire you're playing with here.
Well, no, yeah, I think I've told this story on this podcast, but like I had done it like 12 times. Like I was in 2015, the last like 3 months, I did a shitload of LSD. Like I didn't respect it at all. I was just fucking doing it recreationally. And I had really good experiences every single time. But the last time I got up to go to the bathroom and then I collapsed and everything, like, I don't know how to explain it, but everything looked like kind of puke. It was like beige and red. And in that state that I was in, I thought that I had died and gone to purgatory and I was going to be stuck in purgatory forever. And I had a deep conviction, like, I'm dead, I'm not coming back, and I'm just stuck. So it felt like I was kind of like in hell.
Jeez,
that was hell. Like,
how long did it feel like it lasted?
Fucking days. Like it was only like, I was only on the ground for like an hour probably. God. And I was calling out to my fiance at the time. I was like, Esme. So there was a part of me that was like trying to, fucking somebody come help me.
That's crazy.
But it was
how much acid was that?
That was a 6-tab night. It was, it was a lot. So yeah.
Tabs are interesting. I've heard the dosage can vary. 6 is a lot. I wanted to ask you, because you clearly got way more I've done it once. Have you ever done like drops of acid? Like from a vial?
No, I did gummies. Like I had this guy who would do the dropper on gummies and then you just eat the gummies.
I want the dropper in my eye.
Ew, why mix that?
Eye? Do people
I want you to put a dropper of acid directly on my eyeball.
That's a needless complication.
That is awful idea.
That's so fucking hardcore. Just like in Mandy. Remember in Mandy where they put the eye drop of acid on her eyeball?
Then they got that big wasp. Goal you're going for?
And it's also not hardcore. If you were hardcore, you'd be smoking meth and robbing gas stations.
It's like in the Batman. In the Batman, the drug of choice in Gotham is eye drops.
Yeah.
No, I'd be down for that.
Don't put acid in your eye, you fucking lunatic.
Clearly goes in your butt.
Yeah, for my second time, I'm going to put it in my eye.
Because for me, it was, I felt fully in control of me. I'm in here, like my inner monologue is still there. And I'm like, oh, things are looking pretty silly, huh? It's because of all the drugs we did. Let's see what more silly things we can find. I feel giddy too. And like that's my inner monologue. I wasn't out of it. I wasn't thinking I was anywhere I wasn't. I just remember searching for as many visuals as I could that would be altered by my state, as much as I felt. And that was
movies. Fun. Movies can be really fun. Like I watched Tron Legacy on acid, and I had taken the. It takes like around 30, 45 minutes to kick in, really, and it's just like. It kind of you just know when it's starting. And for me, the acid trip started when like he goes into Tron and like everything becomes digitized and there's this orchestral, beautiful Daft Punk soundtrack. And I was like, it can be a lot of fun. A lot of people like to be outside and stuff, but I really loved watching movies when I was.
How did you balance life with it? Like if it lasts 14 hours,
I was just fucking abusing it and not showing up to work. And it was not
can you, cause I heard you,
was it streaming?
Really,
is that work or was it
on it, right?
Okay.
Like you can't sleep, right?
No.
So you're like locking in for like 14 hours of no sleep.
For most people, like the intense stuff ends like around 9 hours, but for whatever reason, my body was different. So like I was fully hallucinating for 12 to 13 hours. And then when I would come down, like Kyle, I don't know if this was your experience, but like coming down for like 3 hours was so relaxing. Like everything was so not like smoking weed, just lying on the couch. You feel so good. You still can't.
I was smoking weed continuously the whole time. And it was like strong weed. And it was the first time I'd smoked weed, in years. So it was really getting fucking high. But it lasted so long. It lasted all night and into the next morning. And there was no like come down. There was no hangover. There was nothing. It was just like, I don't remember when I stopped being high, but I did at some point. And I was, none the worse for wear. I loved acid.
Could you feel?
I want some acid now.
Could you feel the weed while you're on acid?
Yeah,
or is it
definitely?
Because like acid just feels to me, and I've never done it. It feels like so much of a harder drug. It feels like it'd be like, oh yeah, I'm drinking a Bud Light while I just took meth.
To me, acid was the lighter.
Water.
To me, acid's lighter than weed. If you don't have any tolerance for weed would like bake you into a coma on the ground if you smoke too much. Whereas the acid, it felt like the more acid I took, the giddier and happier I got. I wasn't being doped up, and my sensories weren't being deadened to the point where I wasn't able to like get around and do what I wanted. It was the opposite. I was very happy to do anything and everything, and I was seeking out visuals. Like I linked that video. We would watch videos like that set to like techno, all sorts of like psychedelic shapes. But not Wizard of Oz, but what's the one where she goes down the rabbit hole? Dorothy.
Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland. That was great. I'd never seen that before. Like
that was a good one. The old cartoon one, the old Disney one you hadn't seen?
Yeah. On LSD, it's very. Her dress is the most beautiful, like beautiful blue.
Did the Cheshire Cat?
When
the Cheshire Cat, did he throw you for a loop?
Well,
when he popped up with those eyes in a spooky way.
That's what happened. Dirty got scared of the fucking movie, and we had to turn it off and like watch something else. Like that's what I was saying. Like he was kind of a downer, and you don't want to. You want to like take care of your buddies if they're having a hard time, but it's like
tough.
Yeah,
it's tough to do that. Ruining this for everyone. Taking care of somebody else when they're having a bad trip is really tough because you're fucking tripping balls. You have to like. It's kind of a big responsibility because if someone is having a bad trip, it's like kind of like a crisis for them, and you have to.
So Kyle, I've heard you talk about Dirty's experience a few times. Do you feel like it was all genuine bad trip, frightened, scared, or was there some attention seeking?
That's what it felt like. Like that's why I was so mad, because in my head I was like, "Hey man, we're all on drugs. But you're like, it felt like a white girl who had a couple Zimas for the first time. And she was like, oh, I'm so drunk. Can you believe it? Look, I can't even walk in a straight line. Look at me. Everyone look at me.
Just playing it up. Yeah.
It's like, dude, just sit still and stop. Why are you giggling and kicking? And he was just on the floor writhing around. Like, we're watching TV and he's writhing around on the floor. It pissed me off, but I was trying to be chill about it because we're all on acid. I didn't want to like freak anybody else out.
All right, Kyle. I have a social question. Genuinely asking this as a potential autist, so don't judge me too bad. I do this thing. I insert myself in that situation. I think what I might have done is just retired to my bedroom and created my like ketamine experience. Would everyone be like, "Woody's an asshole. He bailed on us," or would they be like,
"Yeah, yes? That would have been super lame if somebody had left the group." So it's the situation as well. Like, you have to be there to sort of understand. We're all in a cohesive group doing the same drugs together, watching the same entertainment. And if I went to my bedroom is in the back of this room, I picked the bedroom that's attached to the theater room.
Okay.
Like, it would be like I get out of my theater chair, turn around, take 6 steps, and open my bedroom. And like, this is where I lived the whole trip. So it would have been super lame if I'd left the group. Plus, I didn't want to leave the group.
The most accurate, like on-screen depiction of a hallucinogenic experience like that is in Midsommar. They take mushrooms, and visually, what the director does is this guy named Ari Aster. He's a brilliant filmmaker. But
Taylor and I watched it recently. So
dude, that movie's so good. But if you watch that movie, they do a really good job of like, and it happens in subtle ways too. It's not very like. You have to kind of like squint your eyes and you're like, oh wow, that tree's kind of moving.
The breathiness of it, like I'm kind of much more than the rest of you, obviously. I'm a little spooked by psychedelics. Like, I did mushrooms once in college, my freshman year, and only took enough. I knew nothing of dosages. I just had like kind of a skeevy roommate who had them out on his desk all chopped up, and he gave me some, and I took them, and like all I remember was like watching It's Always Sunny on my TV in my dorm room. Like, I stayed it was just like a Tuesday night, and I just like a slight breathing of the TV towards me, and nothing, that was the extent of it. Like, maybe a slight feeling of levity, but I have this worry that I would freak out and wouldn't like it.
If you took more, mushrooms can be really intense. If you took more, then you would have, like, I saw fucking dragons when I took mushrooms.
Yeah. The thought of that.
How many times have you done mushrooms?
Scares me.
Just one time, similar story in college. Like, I ran out of weed and I was so fucking pissed. And it was like, and my buddy had mushrooms, and I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll try it. And so I ended up like, and then as soon as I started tripping her and knock at the door, I opened the door, and it's 2 buddies from high school that I hadn't seen since graduation. And I was like, come in, I want to fucking, let's talk. And I like took him into like one of the rooms, and I was like, tell me about your life. I'm so interested. And then to this day, I don't know. There was one guy, I swear to God, he was making fucking funny faces at me the whole time. But it honestly could have just been me like hallucinating it, because I kept on telling him, I was like, stop fucking making that face.
Do you know how much you took?
I took an 1/8, I think. So it was like, yeah, a decent amount.
That's more than I took. Yeah, that's
somebody,
dose, right?
Somebody drug fluent. How many grams is that?
3.5.
That's funny. Okay, 3.5 is where I think they'd say that's where Hero's dose starts. Between 3 and 5 is like the full trip. Yeah. I've done it. I think I have a lot more. I think I have more experience than you guys combined with mushrooms. And I don't know. I just get really cuddly. I get affectionate and like chill and calm. It would be my experience. Is there hallucinogenic? It's a happy drug for me. The first time I ever took it, a friend brought it to a campfire, and I had a 1 gram, so like a third of what you had. And just jokes were a little funnier. Something about the smoke coming off the fire was more entertaining and kind of purplish compared to reality. Mm-hmm. And it was just a real chill, good, positive experience for me. A little bit nauseous. So that's the downside of it.